Hey everyone, I'm so excited to have you here. I just wanted to do a little intro video to this video because we're doing an interview today with Piper B, an amazing author, and she's got a book that's out, and I just wanted to introduce you to her. So I hope that you enjoy this video, and I look forward to doing more of these in the future. I'm planning to try and do 2 author interviews a month. So get excited and let's jump into the interview. Hey, can you see me and hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And you can see me too?
Yes, I can see you too.
Wonderful. I've had some issues with Zoom before, so I just wanted to make sure that it's
Yeah.
all working good and everything. Okay, let me just make sure that I have the full screen mode on here so that we can see your lovely face. Perfect. Well, I'm so excited to have you here, Piper. This is just exciting, and I'm going to be recording it just so you know, and then we can
Okay.
start the interview and everything. So, are you excited about your relaunching this book? Correct?
It's kind of a relaunch. Technically, there is new material that hasn't been published before.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's kind of a relaunch of
Okay.
like what I've written and then a few extra things. Yeah.
Yep. I love the cover, by the way. So I just want to let you know that I love the cover.
Thank you. I love it too.
Good. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your writing journey?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Piper. I have been writing since I can remember. I always, when I was a kid, I always overwrote for like school projects and things like that. So I should have known that I was going to be an author someday. Um, I am married to my high school sweetheart.
Yeah,
So,
that's
teen
great.
romance is definitely close to my heart in that way. I also have 3 kids, and my oldest is 7 years old, and she can speak Japanese, so that's pretty cool.
Wow,
Um,
that's talent.
yeah, she's awesome. we our family has like a love affair with Japan, so
Oh,
that's been such a fun thing. Um, and we wanted our kids to learn Japanese, so we have a Japanese au pair too, who helps a ton,
yep.
obviously.
That is so cool.
So thank you. Yeah. And so as far as my writing journey goes, yeah, I was writing since I was a kid, but I didn't really take it seriously until my then boyfriend, my now husband,
Yep.
moved away and we had to do long distance. And so I thought like
Yep.
I started reading a ton to kind of cope with the grief.
Yep.
And then yeah, and then I like really wanted to write a book. So I started writing a project that is still shelved. It's not out yet,
That's exciting.
but it's my big baby.
Oh,
And then it's a fantasy about a princess and all that. I was going off of
fun.
like Grimm's fairy tales
Yep.
sort of thing.
Oh, I
And then yeah, and then in my mid 20s I decided, no, I really want to actually like try to make this happen. So
yeah.
that's how I did it.
Awesome. Oh, that's cool. So funny that you say that you were in a long distance relationship because I was in one too with my husband, and
Really?
it's so crazy. So where was your husband when you, well, then boyfriend, of course, but when,
Yes.
where were you guys, and how far apart were you?
So we lived in the Pacific Northwest, so like across the river in Washington from Portland.
Okay.
Um, that's where we met. We met in middle school and started dating in high school. And when we were heading into our junior year of high school. Um, he moved from there to Indianapolis,
Oh,
and so yeah, it was quite a
that
distance.
is quite a distance. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, that's awesome that I just love finding other people that have also had that long distance relationship and everything. And
Yeah.
that kind of the story that I'm writing is kind of about long distance relationships. What made you want to be a writer?
Yeah, so I guess it's just this fascination with the way that stories affect us,
Hmm.
how it makes life a little bit more tangible. Um, and I always just got these like big emotions with stories, and I almost felt embarrassed by it growing up because other people didn't really seem to like respond
Yep.
to stories the way that I did. But like any romances, I would just like my heart would swell, and I'd be like, oh, I just love it. I don't know.
That is so
So
awesome.
I really wanted to like be a part of creating that for somebody. So that's why I got into writing.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is so cool. I can tell your heart's there. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. So what inspires you to
Yeah.
write?
Um, so there's a couple of things that like I guess like I get a lot of moods and vibes from
Okay.
music and from other stories, from like TV shows. I'm more of like a TV watcher than a reader. I guess like if you count across my life, that's more what I was. I just love stories in any medium pretty much.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, other people's creative pursuits inspire me a lot, but really it was that like that core of like that people really do find themselves a little bit more able to deal with life's problems when it's presented to them in a certain way.
Oh,
And yeah, so that's
yeah, I just think that stories have such a big influence in people's lives, and they can like oh my gosh, like help you through being bullied, or help you
yes,
through, like you said, a long distance relationship. Or
yeah.
so I love that you mentioned that. When it comes to Joy's Summer Love playlist,
Mhm.
can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this book it's very sweet. I consider it wholesome, but I think it's not super squeaky clean necessarily.
Okay.
But it doesn't have any sex in there or anything like that.
Mhm.
So it is very based on my life in like summers that I experienced as a teenager. So I
Okay.
try to get this real summery vibe with all these little events that Joy goes through. And so basically it starts off with her and her one of her buddies, Kale, is like, "Hey, we need to fake date so we can make your BFF Lena jealous because I have a crush on her and I want to get her attention." And Joy's like, "Well, okay, I guess that's fine, but there's a problem because Lena has this like longtime friend that she's had who he's a college guy named Gene Park, and he's like super gorgeous and like very charming, and so he is kind of throwing a wrench in all these plans to get Lena to notice Kale, and Joy's just kind of like, I'm just gonna see what happens. Like, so it unfolds in a way that was in a way that I haven't seen before, I guess.
Yep.
So
That's
yeah,
exciting.
it's
I'm
fun.
so excited to read it, by the way. I'm
Oh.
so excited to read it. Oh, that's so exciting. And then, so what gave you the idea for it? I know that you did say that you kind of got ideas from like when you were in high school and like your high school summer stories, sort of.
Yeah.
Did anything else inspire you for it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, definitely music inspired me, which is kind of why I themed it around music a bit.
I love,
Um, then the title, yeah.
yeah, I love the title. I
So
think it's like a smash hit sound. Like it just, I love that title. It's beautiful.
thank you. Yeah, I just kept hearing these songs and like scenes would come to mind, and I'm like, wow, this is like a theme song for this chapter. And so I ended up like every chapter has its own theme song, which makes Joy's playlist. And but the main thing that happened with it is that I had this dream one night with these specific sort of intersection of characters, like the way that their relationships worked out and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I had to write it. And so I wrote it. It just like poured out of me. And I drew from my past
Okay.
to fill in some of those details.
Okay.
But yeah, it was definitely like the strong feelings came from like a dream. And then as I started like just imagining it and stuff, I had these scenes come to mind that just like I was like, oh my gosh, I have to write this. So
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome. Oh my goodness, that is so cool. That's awesome that you get ideas from dreams as well. I do too, so that's really cool.
Good. Yeah.
Awesome. And it's totally helpful when you get dreams, because then you're like,
Yes.
wow, that's the story.
Well, it's like real feelings played out in pretend land,
Right.
pretty much.
Right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love it. Okay, and so our next question is, who are your favorite authors?
Okay, so I was definitely the first time I read The Hobbit, I was like super impressed with the way that Tolkien just like the way that he could paint a picture with words and like ignite these feelings within this like very immersive world. I just love that. So The Hobbit is like my favorite classic book.
Yeah.
I also love Jane Austen as a classic author because she's so she just got at the heart of things
It did.
that like transcends time and stuff.
Mhm.
But beyond the like the classic authors, my favorite childhood author was Lemony Snicket.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, he's. I actually met Daniel Handler in person once, and he's just
Did.
he's
That
just
is cool.
so quirky.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
um,
You can tell
yeah,
he's
and
writing
then
because he's a quirky person, but in a good way, a quirky in a great way.
yes,
Like, I think
he's
if you can like create a story in a different way like that, it's just like it's amazing.
he just sees the world in such a unique way, and I felt like there wasn't very many authors out there giving kids like access to their dark feelings.
Yeah,
Because like that's one of the things that he did really well was like
yeah,
like I felt like I was allowed to be depressed and grief stricken as a kid,
yeah,
because I was reading his books,
yeah. There are some
even
definite
though I
dark
really
themes,
wasn't like
right?
I wasn't like that.
Yeah, yeah. I totally get that. That's cool. He's a great writer too. That's
Mhm.
awesome. And then any others that you want to throw in there that you think that people might like to read as well?
Yeah, well, I would say Scott Westerfeld was is one of my favorite young adult authors.
Okay.
He's his writing and his worlds and stuff, his characters, they're so vibrant, and I was really impacted by his writing as well. I got to meet him too, actually.
Oh yay! I love meeting all like your favorite authors and stuff like that. So it's like so cool. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Cool. Those are all great writers. So that's great. Okay, and so for the next question I have, what is a typical writing day like for you?
Writing. Okay. Yeah. Well, it doesn't play out the same way every day. It kind of depends on, with family and stuff, like what's going on that day. Usually I find a little bit more time to focus later in the evenings because my husband he cooks up dinner every night. So I'm
That
kind of lucky that way.
yeah, that's awesome. My husband loves to cook too, but we both we both cook a couple days a week. But that's awesome. That's wonderful that he loves to cook.
Yes. Hmm. Yeah, he loves to cook. He's always taking really good care of me.
Oh,
Um,
great. That's really good.
so yeah. So yeah, usually like those times of days are a little bit easier for me. I'll cook while he makes dinner, then we'll have dinner, we'll get the kids ready for bed together, and then once the kids are down, I'll like usually like 8:30 or 9 I have a couple of hours that I can write.
Oh, perfect.
But lately, since I have an au pair, I try to find time to write during her work hours, which are like in the middle of the day, but it's a lot hard. I don't know why. I end up doing a lot of other book related, like author related work, like even up to like the very last minute to this interview. I was like trying to figure out stuff for my like store and like stuff
Yeah,
like that. So I don't always get writing done then, but
that's
my
totally
creativity feels a little bit more accessible at night.
there you go. Yeah, that's totally understandable. And I feel like when it's kind of like you're wearing a bunch of hats, right? And you just
Yes.
set that one down and
Hmm.
come over here and do this one. And then, yeah, that's awesome though. And are you indie published author?
I am indie published.
Cool.
Yes. So
So,
this first one was like last year
okay.
I published that one.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah.
Yes. Cool. So what made you decide to become an indie author?
I think it was just that like I wanted the creative control. I feel like I couldn't really compromise on it.
Yeah.
Um but I I didn't even try to query or anything like
Yeah.
that because I just wasn't the timing just wasn't didn't feel right for me.
Yeah.
I had this book, it was done, and it's especially with the summer, like a seasonal book, which I don't totally recommend writing a seasonal book.
Okay.
But I wanted to write, I had this seasonal book that I'm like, I gotta release it at a certain time. So I gave myself kind of a ridiculous timeline and decided just to go for it. We had some savings to spend on like editing, book cover, and
Okay.
I got in the first 6 months of last year, I was able to get all of that stuff figured out. So
Yay. Well, that's wonderful. That's great. Yeah. Oh, it's just a fun journey being an indie author, isn't it? Like
yes,
it's definitely fun. I'm also in the same boat as you. So I actually
yeah,
didn't end up querying at all. And I was thinking, down the road, if I decide to be a hybrid author, then I will. But right now I'm chasing
yeah,
the indie route.
yeah. It's good. I like the community of indie authors. There's so much support there.
There are.
Um, yeah, and I love having the control, being able to decide like what I want to do and not having someone tell me what I have to do, and
Yeah.
like just not having that conflict is very it suits me.
Right, right. I totally get that. And I kind of like a free spirit, right? And you kind of like to have creative control over the cover, and because like that's one thing in traditional publishing, they decide the cover. Usually, you don't get a say over it.
Yeah.
And then the next question here is, okay, what is the most difficult thing about being a writer for you?
I think that's a hard question because there's a lot of things about writing that are like really fun,
Yeah.
but also hard at the same time. Like drafting is like my favorite thing, my favorite part of writing, but it's also the most frustrating part of writing to me because figuring like putting the world, all the ideas and mixing them together so that the theme comes through, so the characters pop out, so that like, all those things. It's really fun to like imagine. I'm really good at starting things. I'm very bad at finishing them. So
I am.
I getting to the end, probably just yeah, I would say finishing a narrative
Yeah.
is the hardest part for me
Okay.
because I want it to be a certain way and I have a hard time figuring out those little pieces that make it just like what it should be.
Right. And do you have any like plot method that you follow, or like save the cat or anything like that that you use?
Yeah, I love Save the Cat. I think I wrote Joy Summer Love playlist after doing a lot of research about like how to like theme books and how to plot them and all of that. So I used Save the Cat for it and just to see if I could.
Yeah.
And it worked really, really well. It helped
Good.
me pinpoint those reasons I was having problems
Yeah.
with like finishing a book, like realizing that, halfway through there needs to be this this big shift, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, so it doesn't have to come at the end, so stuff like that. I loved using the cat, but I'm also a huge proponent in like not always following a formula or not like feeling adhered to a formula
Yeah.
because you have to get it out, you have to write it.
Yeah. That is such good advice. Like that is so good. Since we chatted about the most difficult side of being a writer, what is something that you find most precious about being a writer? Something that you absolutely love about it?
I absolutely love the emotion part of it, like getting to experience things vicariously
Yeah.
through characters and because we can't experience everything that life has to offer as an individual, but I
True.
want to. And
Right.
so
Right. Me too.
I love getting through it like that, like going like creating situations for people that I want to know, like how would I deal with this and what would I do,
Yeah.
and also the joys with that are so fun. I
Right.
feel like it is me going through it.
I love that. I feel like we're on the same wavelength right there.
Really
Like, oh my
good.
goodness, I am completely right there with you. The next question, I oh yeah, I absolutely love like your dance off Fridays that you do like on
Yep.
Instagram. Is that something that you created and everything like and just started, or is there like something where you found out about that and just started doing it, or how did that
So
start?
yeah,
It's so awesome.
I I like just I did like a dancing reel that
Yeah.
was like, just kind of goofy and whatever. And my friend Nick Stamen, who's also an indie author,
Yeah.
um she saw it through someone else. Someone else sent it to her, and they're like, "Hey, look, she dances too." And so we started chatting about it, and I told her she and I tagged each other a couple times on dancing stuff, and then I was like, you know what, we should do this every Friday. And she's like, yes, let's do it. And so we started.
Started doing
I
it.
gave it the name Shameless Dance Friday,
I love
and yeah, thank you. It's just for fun, like there's so much going on right now that it can be really hard
fun,
to just
right?
let loose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like a little ray of sunshine on Fridays.
Yes.
What advice would you give to a new writer, or new advice that you give to a new writer?
Yeah, advice that I would give to a new writer. Um, so other than like the typical like make sure you're reading and make sure you're actually writing stuff,
Yeah.
there's two other things that really changed the writing game for me. One of them was finishing something. I did not write hardly anything until I actually finished a book. So it was like something clicked in my brain that said like you can do this, and so I kept doing it. So that would be my number one. And then the second piece of advice, because you can't just like finish a book and then it's done, like you have to fix it.
Exactly.
And so my second piece of advice would be to get somebody else to give you feedback, someone who knows what they're talking about, someone who's a friend to you, someone who can get excited about the same things that you're excited about, because that has kept me going.
Yeah.
For like years now.
Wonderful. That's really good advice. I have another question. Anything new in the works? I know you said you have a shelved project at the moment, but do you have anything new in the works at all yet?
I have a few. I have quite a few works in progress right now.
Okay.
The ones that I'm actively working. So I have one that's like a sci-fi thriller that is. I have a co-author with it, and we're just like right now. We've talked about it for hours and hours and hours, and I started kind of drafting a little pieces here and there. I did a NaNoWriMo draft for it, but it's a total mess. So it's probably going to be a while before we get to work on it, especially because our seasons of life are not really conducive to drafting a book right now.
Okay. Yeah.
But that one is really, really close to my heart. It's very that also had lots of like dream elements and stuff like that.
Cool.
Then there's my major project, which is Zolithia, which is a princess fantasy series.
Cool.
That I worked on since I was 17.
That's
and that one is I'm not working on it right now.
Okay.
The active projects I have right now are Project Lady, which is a Lady and the Tramp inspired historical fantasy.
Oh, cool.
And so it's with humans, not with dogs.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But you get that like sort of, prim and proper, like lost in the, city character girl. And then you have the guide who's kind of like aloof and all of that. And it's a romance, and
cute. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's giving me a lot of trouble right now.
I'm a beta reader.
Yeah. I will soon, I think. I am trying to decide if it should be one book or two. Just because of the way that the narrative has gone. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then there's one other thing that I'm working on right now. I'm not sure if it's going to go anywhere, but it's I'm intrigued by Kindle Vella and like the episodic way of writing. And so I've had this short story that I've been sitting on for like a year that is kind of sitting on this particular version of this story for a year, but like it's been around for a long time, and it's kind of short. It wouldn't be a book necessarily, but it's like got lots of fantasy elements and stuff like that. So I won't say too much about it because I really don't know where it's going to go, but that's the one that I've been working on. Like even yesterday I was writing for that one. So.
Oh, cool. Well, that's wonderful. That's awesome, Piper. That's just, I'm so excited about your projects, and they sound so cool. So you got to finish them, girl, and you got to get them done because we want to read them.
True. I got to finish them. I got to get better at that part.
I know, me too. Preaching to myself here too. Oh man, that's awesome though. And so, so for the last question here is like, where can people find you and your book?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. That's where my personality is going to come out a lot.
Okay.
So I'm always in stories, always doing, different things. You can DM me there. I'm very active there. I also have a website. It's piperbeauthor.com. Occasionally I post a blog. That's where my books are listed. And then I don't really have any other activity on other platforms, but I'm looking into my options because I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket necessarily.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully there will be more to come in the future, but definitely you can find me on Instagram for sure. It's piper.b. Very easy to remember.
Perfect. Yes. Everyone must go follow her. She is awesome and super inspiring as well. So, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for joining today, Piper. And it was so much fun to talk to you and everything. And
Yeah,
thank
me
you
too.
so
Thank
much.
you.